to inspect it.
And the children started telling stories of these butterfly people that were there to help. Angels, very simply, they are messengers of God. That's what the suffix L means on their name, angel, but also Michael.
Hello and welcome back to Paranormal Perspectives. My name's Stan, and tonight we're talking about angels. We have Christi Clemons Hoffman here tonight. Hi, Christi. How are you doing? Nice to meet you.
Well, nice to meet you, Stan. I'm thrilled to be here.
Yeah, it's just, I think that the energies are positive tonight. I think this is something I think this channel needs really to talk about more, because there are these visitors people tend to encounter in their life, whether they do or don't believe. These situations just seem to happen, and they could be life-changing. They could just be about passing a message or pointing people in a certain direction. And I personally have had a couple of experiences which I think could be angels. I'd love to speak to you about that some more a bit later in the conversation, if that's okay. But yeah, this is really all about getting to know you, about your world. I know that you host the Real Life Angel Encounters podcast, which I've started listening to a couple of days ago, which is fascinating. And more than ever, it shows that these experiences happen to people of all different walks of life, really. So yeah, so I'd love to start the conversation, if that's okay, just to simply ask, okay, well, who's Christi and what excites you?
Well, I am a mom, first and foremost. I've got a kid who is just the world to me. Now, I grew up being intuitive, and it sounds like you did as well, Stan, your sister.
I was catapulted into it at a young age, and my sister won't admit it openly, though I believe she is. I think she sees things through dreams.
Yes, yes, yes. So I grew up knowing things and seeing energies around people, seeing ghosts and that type of thing. But, I grew up in the suburbs of Kansas City, where it was pretty affluent, and I just felt so out of the circle, right? I just felt like I was the odd one, the weird one. And I didn't know that there was anything special that you could do with these gifts and these interests. I didn't know that you could make a career of it. I didn't know you could use this to help people. I didn't know you could use it to improve your life. I really had no role models whatsoever. But then as an adult, I had something of a tower moment, as we might say, or a crucible moment, right? The bottom fell out of my life. And doing some research into soul contracts and soulmates and karma and things like that, I came across Dolores Cannon. I don't know if you or your audience are familiar.
Yes.
Very well-known metaphysician. So I came across Dolores Cannon, and everything opened up to me. Now, somewhere along the way, I'd learned about reincarnation, and that made a tremendous amount of sense when Christianity just did not. But then I came across Dolores Cannon, and so much more just made sense to me. And I started seeking in earnest, and I started training with a teacher that I found here in Kansas City. She was teaching psychic development classes, and I was taking all of the classes that she was teaching about communicating with aliens, communicating with archangels and angelic presences and mediumship and so many things. And I started working with clients on my own. But always in the back of my mind was this hypnosis technique that Dolores had developed, quantum healing hypnosis technique, QHH. And it was always in the back of my mind. And this whole time I was a corporate drone. I worked for a publishing company. Then I started working for Hallmark, the greeting card company. It's based here in Kansas City. And I was doing this work on the side. I was working with clients, and I started meeting people who were also in this metaphysical realm, and I was meeting people who were doing energy work and Reiki. I had no idea what that was at the time, but I thought, well, that's the next thing I need to learn. And it took my Reiki 1 and 2, later followed by my Reiki 3, and then my Reiki Master. And eventually I just realized, what I really need to be doing is this quantum healing hypnosis technique. And by this time I had been subject to a huge layoff, or I think it's redundancy, you call it in the UK.
We do, yes.
Yes, with Hallmark. They laid off about 1,500 people, and they paid for us to take, whoever wanted to, could take entrepreneurial classes, how to start a business. And that's what I did, because I knew by then that I didn't want to be a corporate drone anymore, that was killing me. So I learned how to open a business, and I opened Radiate Wellness. Now, Radiate Wellness is it's a group practice, and we've got several practitioners with us, and we market together, we refer each other, we do events together, that type of thing. But we do not have a brick and mortar. We have our website, and that's how we present together. So I started Radiate Wellness, and I also took the classes to be a QHHT practitioner. That was in 2016. And then I quickly moved through the different levels, and now I'm one of the level 3 practitioners. There's, I think, 54 of us now in the world, and I do HT practice as well. I also am board certified in clinical hypnotherapy and introspective hypnosis. I do that as well. So a lot of different hats and different things, but it all is geared toward helping us understand more about who we really are and the unending stream of help that we all have with us.
That's incredible. Like, it seems to be there are these points in life that are catalyzers that push you in a certain direction. So may I ask, when that situation happened at Hallmark, were you a spiritual person before?
I was. By the time I'd gotten to Hallmark, I was already doing readings for people outside of work.
Right.
I was already Reiki 2, so I was performing distance Reiki with clients all over the country. So yeah, I was. Now, I had always been a spiritual person, even though I didn't understand these spiritual gifts that I had. And when I was about, I'd say maybe 7th grade, which is about age 13, took my brother and I to the our Unitarian Universalist church here in the area. Actually, I'd grown up Unitarian Universalist, but she took us to a new church. And the minister there was doing a series on world religions and actually rode his motorcycle into the church to talk about Zen Buddhism.
What, is an engine on straight through?
Oh, yeah. Vroom, vroom.
That's
right?
That's impressive, I have to say. I'd go to that church, crikey.
Well, the church itself was a barn, actually, so that they had retrofitted it for church. Pretty cool. But this was to talk about Zen Buddhism because, of course, the book Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance was a big hit in the States. So it was kind of a gimmick. Now, before that, my grandparents were Christian, very, very Christian. They went to Stony Point Christian Church here in Kansas City, and they wanted me to be Christian too. And it made no sense whatsoever. When I say it made no sense, it's like, how does somebody die for our sins? I never even met them. And I didn't understand it. But I tell you, when this minister at the Unitarian Church talked about Zen Buddhism and the cycle of rebirth and reincarnation, that all of a sudden made sense. And I was so just on fire and started reading so much. Carlos Castaneda and Robert Persing and God, who else? The Nag Hammadi. And I just started reading all these things and the world just opened up to me. So yeah, I was spiritual by then, but I didn't know what to do with it.
Yeah, I can relate to that quite a lot, actually, because I was originally brought up as Catholic and I didn't really have much of a choice in it. It was just imposed upon me and that's all I knew. So if I didn't follow their way of thinking, then I'll be seen as bad. And it doesn't mean all Catholics are bad at all. It's not what I ever say. It was just, for me, I had quite a major experience when I was 5 years old where I had an more of a near-death experience following being hit by a car, basically. So, but yeah, long story short, I had this experience where I met this bizarre entity during the hospital and essentially saw the whole layout of the hospital before I'd physically visited it in my body. So I found that when I was woken up a few days later and eventually a few weeks later, began to be able to move more. I was put into a wheelchair and I knew the whole layout of the hospital. I was telling the nurse, okay, we want to turn left down here, turn right down here, and so on. So, but yeah, why I'm saying this is mainly because the religion that I was brought up in told you that these things can't happen, that when you die, you go to X place, depending on how you served us in this life or followed their book. And that didn't sit well with me for much of my childhood. And I kept trying to force myself to go to church. But I had this feeling deep down inside my gut, this doesn't feel right. Like, there's all these lovely, lovely people here. They're so into it, though, and when they go to it every Sunday, they go there with happiness and joy. But I've sat there thinking, I don't feel this. Like, I feel like I know a secret that I shouldn't know. But eventually, yeah, it took me many years of me trying to hold on for dear life to refuse to acknowledge that I had that experience because it made me not fit in. Now, as an adult, I finally admitted, look, okay, well, I kind of died for a bit. I met something that wasn't quite human, whatever it was, and I came back a very changed person in so many different ways. So yeah, I can completely relate to that. And good for you for seeking that through in your life and just trusting in it and developing that.
See, that's why I do what I do, Stan, is that I say in my book, Real Life Angel Encounters, that on a mission of world domination. And I really mean that. That I am on a mission of world domination to let people know that there's so much more to them than they think, and that there's a whole team of beings around them who want them to succeed and be happy.
Yeah. I
So
think
it sounds like you stumbled onto that quite naturally.
yes, I did. You could say it's fortunate or unfortunate, but either way, whatever happened to me then, I came back a different person because my brain worked differently. It took me many years for me to be able to slow down the way I speak because
Oh,
information goes out like a machine gun, basically. Like when I talk to people, the amount of weird looks I've had I have a whole library of images of people making bizarre faces to me as I was trying to speak them through my childhood and my teenage years because I get so excited and the information wants to come out, but it's just too much for my body to catch up with. But having that experience, I just knew things like information would come out of nowhere. And I kind of almost overnight turned into an artist. I went from being relatively normal kind of happy-ish kid to being a bit of a sad and obviously a kid in a lot of physical pain. But overnight I could just draw. And I remember, I think my mum told me this story about me waking up after one of my major operations and said simply, I need a paintbrush now. Get me a brush. I need to draw. And yeah, the nurses, bless them, like they went to go and get some paper and pens or whatever they could do and very carefully like laid it on my chest because my legs were strung up in the air, my arms couldn't move. I had like one free arm where I could just do a bit of drawing and I just needed to draw. So I just kept drawing and drawing through hospital and eventually I got physically better and I healed and been doing it ever since really. Like it's been my little way of channeling something. I don't know what it is,
that's
but yeah,
amazing.
it's what's led me to do this very podcast really. Like now I'm starting to talk about these crazy experiences I've had through my life and saying to other people, it's okay to talk about these things and the fact I'm so fortunate I get to speak to people like yourself to share these experiences really is quite, humbling, really.
My goodness. Do you know who David Ditchfield is?
No.
Ditchfield. Well, he's from the UK and he had a near-death experience.
Okay.
Out of that experience the same way. He felt like he was compelled to paint the beings that he saw,
Yes.
and
Yes.
also
Precisely.
compelled to
Okay.
write the music that he heard. So he composed a symphony and he started painting. And then he wrote a book called Shine On. It's very good. I've had him on my
I'll
show.
definitely be reading that, that's for sure. Yeah, I've been trying to find somebody who's been through that exact experience, really, because it's so peculiar. But I met something out there that it was neither good nor bad. It was something very, very powerful, whatever it was. I've been trying to figure out what on earth this entity was, and I do feel like it pursued me for many years through my personal experiences. I had like poltergeist activity and such, but anyway, I'll go into that later at some point anyway, though, because I want to make sure this conversation is about you, really. So I want to
Amazing.
ask you, Christy, like, just for our watchers, really, just so we kind of start from the right ground, really, like, to you, what is an angel and where do you think they come from?
Well, angels, very simply, they are messengers of God. That's what the suffix "el" means on their name, angel, but also Michael, Haniel, Gabriel. They're messengers of God. In very simple terms, they are non physical beings who are here to support us and they want to support us. Now, there's a hierarchy of these spiritual beings from humans down on the 3D on planet Earth all the way up to God. There's a hierarchy. We think that angels and archangels, we think they're very high in that in that hierarchy, and they're not. Archangels are about mid-level because
Right.
they are in a position to help humans. So the higher forms of that hierarchy are here to help the entire planet or geographic locations or beings as a whole or God as a whole. So angels are beings that are here to help humans. We also have ascended masters too. Ascended masters are kind of similar but not, and I dedicate a whole chapter in the book to who these beings are, the archangels, angels, guardian angels, loved ones, and ascended masters. Ascended masters are kind of a mixed bag. Some of them have been human before, and some of them are deities, but they all, again, are in service to humanity. And I should say that the archangels have not been human before, except two of them, Metatron and Sandalphon. They were brothers in the Bible, and they are brothers in the angelic realm. So Metatron was Enoch in the Bible, and Sandalphon was Elijah in the Bible.
So Enoch, correct me if I'm wrong, Enoch is Moses' great granddad or granddad. Is that correct in the story?
Oh, I should know this, but I'm not quite certain. I know that he was a scribe.
Right.
He kept meticulous records.
Because it's interesting that you said Metatron and Sandalphon because I'm a psychedelic artist as well, which is kind of powered by my experience. So, and who did I make a picture of? Metatron and Sandalphon a while ago, because I felt compelled to do this thing where I feel like I need to draw a vibration, and I'll have to send you a link anyway, just sort of show you it though. And I felt like these two brothers were helping me through an experience I was going through at the time, which is it's just really interesting that you said that. So I think this is beginning to be the link that I mentioned earlier before the recording. I think there's a reason why I think we were supposed to speak. So yeah.
They paired up because they are the only two archangels who have been human before. And we
Yes.
know this
Yeah.
from their names, right? Because they don't fit that naming convention of L as the suffix, right? They've got these weird archangel names. But Metatron oversees sacred geometry. And of course, in psychedelic art, that's all about the sacred geometry, or a lot of it is about the sacred geometry. And he
Right.
oversees the order of the universe. He oversees kids who might have ADD, ADHD, autism, just to help to organize their thinking and help the adults who are with them to work with them. And then Sandalphon oversees the throat chakra. He's all about oration and music and people who use their voice for a living or for their avocation. He's also enormously tall and takes our prayers to heaven. So he's an intercessor.
This is really spooking me out, this conversation.
Why? Why, Stan?
Because me doing this podcast was about me finding my voice, because I had a lot of phobias about public speaking, and I do have a bit of a speech impediment partly linked to this experience that I had anyway. I've been learning how to speak slowly, and at the time I was trying to find my confidence as I started this podcast. I made this picture of Sandalphon, and that's really bizarre. So it might be a coincidence. I don't know. I don't know if this is like an example of angelic contact, as in people intersecting and maybe pointing you in a certain direction. I just don't know. But ever since doing this podcast, I've actually found my voice. So I've actually gone, okay, look, I do sound a bit weird sometimes, but it's about embracing it and just being yourself, really, and inspiring other people to do the same. So this is really spooky. Sorry.
Well, it sounds like that Sandalphon and Metatron have come together in a way, with Metatron helping kids who might be the underdogs, kids who maybe didn't have much of a voice, and then Sandalphon stepping up to help you find that voice.
Wow. So have you, Christy, like had experiences yourself that you would say is an angelic intervention or contact?
Oh, yes. And I put some of them in the book. So, yes. There was one of my favorite stories. I don't know if you're familiar with Abraham Hicks.
No, not quite. Not yet.
Right. This is a group of angels that are channeled. This group of angels, they call themselves Abraham. They're channeled by a woman named Esther Hicks. Since it comes through her filter and her lens, they collectively call these messages Abraham Hicks. I had been listening to a lot of Abraham Hicks channeling CDs, and I was going through this dark night of the soul that I told you about. I was on my way to my therapist's office, driving down 71 Highway outside of Kansas City, and listening to an Abraham Hicks CD. And I said out loud, Abraham, I have to know that everything's going to be okay. Please give me a sign that I'm going to be all right. Right then, I kid you not, Stan, this van pulled in front of my car on the highway, merged in front of me. On the back of the van, it said, Abraham, the name you know, the people you trust. There was no
Yeah.
website, no phone number, no address, no sign of what type of work this van was intended for, plumbing or electrical or nothing like that. Of course, I almost wrecked my car because I was so shocked. And after my appointment, I thought, I'm going to find who this is. And I couldn't find any business in the area with that particular tagline or
That
any
is bizarre. Yeah,
business.
that amazing.
Isn't that amazing? So, yeah, that's probably my most in your face type of angelic encounter.
Sometimes they can be so unsubtle, unlike the stereotypical winged angels descending from on high with sparkles and glitter and halos and such.
Oh, that would be awesome, but it's not usually like that.
No, I still remember. I think when my cousin died a few years ago. Obviously, it's a very upsetting thing for our family, and he absolutely loved leopards. No, was it cheetahs? I've completely forgotten now. That's not doing his memory very well. It was cheetahs at the time. He absolutely adored them. And when we went back from the funeral, three cars pulled up on the road we were going on. Obviously, we're quite distracted. Three of them, all the same from the same company, all with the same animal on them, one by one, going straight by us. But they weren't accelerating to go in front of us to carry on going. They hung by the side of us for a little while, about 2 to 3 minutes, and then disappeared. I always kind of put that down to maybe coincidence, though, but at the same time, something felt off about that, as if it was a dream, like a dream in reality. And I've always, I always like to think, anyway, at least, that it could have been something, maybe him just giving us a bit of a nudge, saying, yeah, I'm okay.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the book and the podcast are full of stories like that. And it sounds like your cousin just wanted you to have that sign. Now, was that your cousin driving the cars? No, probably not. But
Yeah.
arranging for them to be there at the same time and arranging for y'all to see them.
It's amazing they have access to just tremendous abilities when they do pass to wherever they need to go to. And I don't know if there's a rule out there in the beyond that they can't literally arrive in front of you and explain to you literally, okay, this is what's happening, this is a message. But it seems to be they can only like just nudge you in a certain direction or just have a certain kind of arrangements for you. So,
Yeah.
but speaking about your listeners and people that call into your show,
Yeah.
are they like maybe like three examples that you think actually this has really stood the test of time? Really, this has stayed with me over time, and it's really made me kind of think, okay, well, this has some stronger basis and needs to be shared with the world.
Yeah, I'll give you a couple of examples. One is a recent one. It's not in the book yet, but it's on the podcast. And this is a gentleman who grew up in Florida. He had a little sister who was developmentally disabled. She has since passed. But when they were little, they were shopping with mom, and this was an open air market in Florida. And these open air markets, or this particular one, I think it was just kind of little shops or stands, and there were streets going through it. So this little sister, she was maybe 3 at the time and was strapped into a stroller, or I'm not sure what you call them in the UK, maybe a pram, but she was strapped
Pram,
in
yes.
her pram, and somehow she wriggled out of it and took off. And they turned around to notice that she was gone. And this little child was developmentally disabled, as I said. She was nonverbal, or she was non-vocal, or no, she was nonverbal, didn't have words. And they were looking around for her, couldn't find her, and frantic because she could have run into the street. They're looking around, and this gentleman comes walking up, and he's got her by the hand. And he comes up and he says, "Here you go. I found Elizabeth." And they were like, oh my gosh, that's amazing. I can't believe it. Where was she? They scooped her up, put her back in the stroller, and were strapping her in, turned around to thank him properly, and he was gone. But the thing is, this little girl was nonverbal. How did he know her name was Elizabeth? That sticks,
That's incredible.
right?
Wow.
Right. So there's that story. And that just floored me, and that he disappeared just as soon as he came. And they didn't see him anywhere after that. That was amazing, amazing. Another story is that of a tornado, and this is in the book and on the podcast, of course, but in Joplin, Missouri, which this is going to sound exotic for anybody who's not in the Midwest, but I live in the state of Missouri, and my office where I'm talking to you now is in the state of Kansas. So this
Of course.
Kansas City straddles the line between two states. Anyway, in Missouri, where I was born and live now, there is a town about 3 hours away from me called Joplin. In 2011, there was an E5 tornado, and that is the strongest tornado that you can record. And the whole town was affected by this tornado. Just kilometers and kilometers were flattened. And it was the deadliest tornado on record, costliest tornado on record. It was like you can't be in Missouri and not know about the Joplin tornado. After the Joplin tornado, now for those, I should say, if all you know about tornadoes is what you see in The Wizard of Oz, and we talked quite a bit about The Wizard of Oz before we started recording,
Oh, yes.
only thing that you know of a tornado is Wizard of Oz. That's just the tip of the iceberg. A tornado can do crazy things. It can take a piece of straw and drive it into a tree. It can take a cow and put it up in a tree. It can flatten an entire house, but leave one wall standing and all the pictures intact. Tornadoes are bizarre, and everybody in the Midwest knows what to do when there's a tornado warning. You go and you take cover either in a bathtub and maybe put a mattress over you, or you stand in a door jamb, or you go. The best thing is go to the basement. And many places still don't have basements, strangely enough. Anyway, in the aftermath of the Joplin tornado, people were coming out to assess the damage, and they were gathering to get food and supplies and to check in with disaster relief. And the children started telling stories of these butterfly people that were there to help them. And so many children were telling the story of butterfly people that they have painted a mural in the city now to commemorate the butterflies and butterfly people. So a couple of really remarkable stories. There was a little girl in the car with her dad, and their car had gotten caught up in the tornado, was flipped and flung into a ditch. They escaped out of that unscathed, and they were talking to the police afterward, and the police were taking the story. And the police asked the father, "It was just you and your child in the car at the time, right?" And he says, "Yes, just me and my little girl." And she said, "No, Daddy, don't you remember those beautiful people with the butterfly wings? They were there in the back seat and they kept us safe." And there were other stories of children who were saying, "Oh yeah, the butterfly people just took all of the debris and just flung it away from us and kept us safe." There's a story of a family that lives in a mobile home park. I think you guys call it a caravan park.
Yes.
And these things are notorious during tornadoes because these caravans are not attached. They could be flung around and take a lot of damage. But there is a family in one of these mobile homes, and after the tornado, they were taking stock of the damage. Now, the parents, they had been on their mattress and they had gone sailing through the air, but emerged unharmed. But they were looking for their littlest child. They couldn't find him anywhere. They were frantic, of course. He was miles away. He was wrapped in a green rug and he was completely unharmed. Here's the deal. They didn't have a green rug. Where did that come from? How did he get rolled up in it like a burrito and completely unharmed? There are many, many stories like that, right? Gosh.
Did the little one remember much of what happened during that time? As in how he maybe ended up in the rug?
If he did, he didn't tell it. But I don't think he did.
Well, I can imagine that either way they must be in shock with something like that happening. I think it's the last thing you're going to be thinking of anyway, like observing kind of what's happening to you, because it's going to be such a flash.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, feel sorry for you guys anyway. It's quite a hard thing to go through. I mean, I know that phenomena does happen quite a lot out there, and yeah, I have a lot of respect for people who still are able to live in an area like that, yet still kind of live their lives, really, despite those kind of dangers. But
yeah, I've grown up
bless.
knowing what tornadoes are and going through so many tornado drills at school and tornado watches and tornado warnings and hiding in the basement during a storm and everything. But I tell you, earthquakes terrify me.
I bet. Gosh, believe it or not, I've only ever experienced one in the UK. We just don't get them here. But I think there's once back in, God, I think it was 2000 and, I'm trying to think about it, 2014, I think it was. No, sorry, no, it was earlier than that, about 2010, yeah, about 2010 actually. We actually had a very minor earthquake in the middle of the night, which is a rarity for over here anyway. And even that alone, like, I actually woke up and it was about 1 o'clock in the morning and I felt the whole house shake. And I thought I was dreaming at first, though, but I could actually hear the ceiling cracking. I could hear things kind of breaking, and it didn't sound good. Like, it was such a minor earthquake. So I can't imagine what, a fully fledged earthquake would be, where you guys are. And I know it happens a lot in Japan as well. And I know obviously there's part of Russia that recently had a number of earthquakes and volcanoes and all sorts. So it's it's a hard life to live, really, to live around these kind of things.
Well, because it's so unexpected. So if there's anybody listening right now to this podcast who has been through an earthquake and maybe had some of these miraculous encounters, I would love to hear about that, because I'm sure that there are just as many angel stories surrounding any natural disaster as there was with this tornado.
Yes, absolutely. But it seems to be like natural disasters tend to trigger paranormal events, interestingly enough. And I
Yeah.
don't know whether it's to do with the hysteria of the moment that you maybe misremember certain things, but I've known people just to, I don't know, just discover something. It could be a life changing something that points them in another direction, or maybe reassures them that a certain loved one is alive when at the time they didn't know, and eventually they do realise that they are okay a few days later. And it's interesting. I don't know if it's the collective psychic kind of energy of people all pulling together, going, okay, this has happened. Let's help each other. Let's do something. But yeah, this kind of leads me to the next question. Like, how come some people can see angels, some people can't? Because some people may have angelic interventions or experiences, but don't know that, basically. And maybe, is it like a belief thing that maybe limits your perceptions? Because it seems to be like some people just seemingly apparently don't experience them, but maybe they just don't know.
Right. And I agree. I would agree that we all experience these things, but we might not know what it is. Well, I think there are a couple of things that make the difference. One is believing that there can be these beings around us, right? Belief is not required. Like we don't have to believe in gravity in order for us to experience it, right?
Of
We don't have
course.
to believe in angels for them to intervene with us. But believing that they can be with us and that they can contact us and that they're around us is more likely to result in recognizing what's going on with these stories. But also to be open to it, that why not? Like, we don't have to be Joan of Arc. We don't have to be Moses. We don't have to be anyone special. In fact, everyone is surrounded by angels at all times. So why not be open to it? And there's a quote in my book, and I don't remember exactly who said it. A lot of people ascribe it to Albert Einstein, but I believe it was someone else who said, we can look at things in one of two ways, as if everything is a miracle or as if nothing is a miracle. So it's that belief and that attitude, right? So if we can believe that, hey, this person showed up right when I needed them, isn't that odd? Well, it could also be angelic intervention.
Yes. Yeah. No, that does. Yeah, it does kind of make sense, really. But I could definitely say that I was programmed to think that these things aren't real and that can't happen. So I kind of went in as with the filter of these things can't happen, yet had these things thrust upon me. So I think there's almost like a third category of almost ignorance, I suppose. It's like, okay, I think I've seen it, but I'm going to try and ignore it the best that I can because I'm a bit worried about my church or my friends will make fun of me and such. But I've even started being called Stan the Strange recently at work, which is hilarious. But I think I've just embraced my strangeness. So but if it's okay with you, Christy, I'm just going to present with you an experience that happened to me a little while ago, and I'd love to know from you, like, do you think it was an angelic intervention? Do you think it
Okay.
was pure coincidence? So yeah, I actually do have a couple though, but we'll see if we have time. One that stuck with me for years. Basically, I was with this woman for many years, and I thought she was the best thing ever, perfect, and the nicest person in the world. Like, not a single thing wrong with this person. And long story short, I discovered they weren't particularly faithful, and what I did was I went to meet this person. I took like a 2 hour long train ride to end things properly because that's the way I was brought up, really. And this person just wouldn't see me at the door. This person that had been with me for about 3.5 years just didn't even want to bother talking to me, despite me finding out what I did. But obviously, as you can imagine, I was quite heartbroken. I thought, okay, well, how could I ever trust anybody again? How can, what happens for me next? Basically, my whole life seems to be over. And obviously, that was me dramatizing in my state back then. And so I headed back to the train station to catch my train, and I just deliberately went to the carriage with nobody in it because I just wanted to be left alone because I was in a bit of a grump, really. I just wanted to be in my own space and just be angry and frustrated and hurt and let it all out, really. And I sat down on the train seat, and the train just began to start moving, so nobody else was boarding. So I knew that this place was empty. But out of nowhere, this lady and her daughter, I think this lady must have been about, I'd say roughly late 50s. Her daughter must have been about teenage age. They sat directly next to me. They could have sat next to anybody, and I wasn't visibly crying or anything. I probably looked a little bit upset, so that might be in the giveaway, but I wasn't really being rude or anything. But they sat directly next to me, and I felt a bit annoyed, thinking, why can't you just, of all places to sit, I just don't need anyone, just leave me alone. And they were like, forgive the pun, tornado of positivity, really. Like, they wouldn't leave me alone. Like, she didn't even ask my name, who I was. She says, oh, my name's such and such, and here's my daughter. My daughter's studying this, that, and the other, and I come from this place. And she kept telling me all about, I think she loved doing her craft, like sewing and knitting dolls. I remember her saying that, and oh, and I work for this company, and we do this at the weekends. And her daughter, oh, my daughter's studying this and this at university, and her daughter started joining in. I was thinking, just leave me alone. I couldn't be horrible to them. They're so sweet. And I felt annoyed that I had to delay me being angry and sad and hurt. I had to delay that just to be nice to them and put that mask on. It was a 2.5 hour train journey. It didn't end. It just kept going on and on and on. And by the end of the train journey, I had no choice but to feel happy. And I was actually, listening to their conversations. At the end, I began to actually talk to them, but I was giving them nothing for about at least the first hour. I wasn't talking to them or adding anything to the conversation to get them to stop. But by the time the train pulled into the station, I saw it was a really busy station. This was back at Oxford Station, so I don't know if anybody knows it well. It's quite small, so when it gets busy, it gets really cramped. So it's just me and the two ladies in the carriage, and they just rounded up the conversation. They said, "Oh, nice to meet you," and I said, "Oh, yeah, nice to meet you." And I walked to the door, and there was just one exit to the train, and there was a wall of people there, so you had to almost separate the sea, like Moses, basically, like separate the sea to get through. I said to people, can you just move aside to let them through? And they said, oh, yeah, sorry. And I realised as I stepped off, I realised I was the first person leaving the carriage. So I looked behind to see where they'd gone, and they weren't there. And I don't know where they left. I kept thinking, maybe did I just maybe missee where they went? Did they go to the next carriage though? But I realised at the time it was locked between carriages. You couldn't cross between each of them. I don't really know why though, but yeah, I didn't know where they went, and the whole conversation felt like a dream. But the great part about this is, when I stood off the train, I just had this knowledge in my head, everything's going to be okay and everything's going to start. And I walked out, and at the time I was a failed designer. Like, nobody would hire me as a graphic designer because I had no experience. Obviously, I split up with my girlfriend then. I had like nothing going for me in life. Like, the job that I had at the time, I was miserable in. It was just really not a fun life at the time. That one thing in my life that I had then was the one thing going for me, and I just knew everything was okay. And then within a few weeks I got offered my first graphic design job after being rejected for years upon years upon years for interviews. I then eventually, a few weeks later, met my now wife through a dating app, which that could have taken years for that to happen. That happened to happen straight away. We now have our own house. We have 2 lovely kids, and it's weird how that one conversation with those 2 complete strangers completely signified the change of my life at the time. So I'm kind of glad that woman did what she did, because maybe what I have now wouldn't have happened. I don't know, but the conversation with these 2 belligerent women that would not stop talking to me the whole way for that 2.5 hour train ride just worked. I don't know. I'm not sure how that happened. So I'm kind of curious to ask you, Christy, like, what do you think? What do you think it was?
I think they shifted your energy. They came along at a time when you were really needing to have something positive in your life. You were needing to have this positive direction. And I feel like they got you out of that funk you were in and set you on a new path. Well,
Right.
this happens all the time, right? There's a
Yeah.
story in my book, Real Life Angel Encounters, of this woman, Erin. She was on her way to a meeting at her kid's school, organizing a gala fundraiser, and she was going to stop by the local big box store to get some craft materials to show what she had in mind for some of these decorations for this party. Anyway, she had maybe 5 minutes to run in, go to the right place, grab the stuff, and leave and make it to the meeting. So she runs into the store, and she goes to the craft aisle, and there's this woman there, and an elderly woman, and she's looking at the things that you might fill a vase with. And she turned to this caller and said, I am so sorry, but can you help me with something? And this woman said, she thought, I don't have time for this, lady. Get out of my
Mm.
face. Just kind of like you were thinking of these two women. But she just went, sure. What do you need? And this older woman said, my husband has died within the past year. This is my first Thanksgiving. It's a big holiday here in the United States. It's my first Thanksgiving without him. And I want to make a special centerpiece. And I need help figuring out what I'm going to put in my vase. And so the caller, Erin, she said, yes, I'll help you with this. And got talking with this woman, had just a magical encounter with her, and she knew that there was no place that she needed to be besides there with this woman who was in grief. And she just had this wave of peace wash over her. It's going to be okay. I can be late to the meeting. She texted her people and said, I'm going to be about 5 to 10 minutes late. They said, no worries, take your time. And they both, she and this elderly woman, agreed that something really magical happened. Now, were either one of them an angel? No, probably not. But they came together energetically drawn to help each other and support each other. And I think that's what happened with you.
Yeah, I just can't get my head around it even still to this day. There's almost two coincidences though, just those people happening to be there at that time, specifically going just for me as well. I'm not the most talkative person usually outside of obviously this podcast. And then after, it just happened to be a few weeks later, suddenly my life changed. And it's bizarre, like it's a 2-level thing.
They sat down right next to you in an empty car. I mean, how rude. Yeah.
Usually it's a very un-British thing to do. Usually we like to give each other space, and if we do sit next to each other, we say, may I sit next to you? This is the polite thing to do. But these people, like I say, they were like just a nuclear bomb of positive energy. Like they were giving it to you regardless of whether you want it or not, really. And that's just the thing I needed at that moment, really. I needed just to go, okay, to be almost knocked back into place, of realizing that person really wasn't worth it. If that person made you do that and treated you that way, they're not really worth it for you, and that you deserve better in life. And that shift of frequency seemed to invite all this extra in. And yeah, I mean, I come from a background where you're not usually welcome in the graphic design profession. It's usually, it's prescribed for people that maybe have contacts in the industry or went to a particularly good school or whatever it is. But so it took me many years to convince people that I'm actually good. And that change of frequency, I don't know what happened, whether it made me seem more confident, but the person that gave me the job at the time, I'm now still really good friends with. He's such a lovely person. He actually lives just in the next village from me as well now. And I can't escape him either. I tried to escape him for years. He keeps following me everywhere I go. But I still feel like I owe my career to him, really. For all the snobs that I've spoken to for different interviews who turn their nose up at me, he was the first person who looked me in the eye and talked to me as a person. And that's when I knew something's happening here. Like, this is different to all the interviews I've had before. So yeah, those two ladies, if they're ever out there, if they ever were even real in this physical reality, I just don't know. But either way, I do owe them a thanks for nudging me in that way, because I could have just remained in a grump for months, even years after, really. And I realised I've had better relationships since. I've had a better life since, really. So basically, it's happened a few years later, and I feel like it's a bit. Do you know the reference like Benny Hill?
Oh,
a comedy
yes.
Where everything's all happening at once. Yeah, it's one of those moments. Basically, my wife was pregnant with our first child, and we're rushing to the John Ratcliffe Hospital, which obviously is quite a well-known hospital there. And if anybody who lives in the area knows that their parking there is terrible. It just gets filled so quickly. Like, when you need to use a hospital, you can't get a space. It's a nightmare. I mean, it's an amazing hospital. Don't get me wrong, but it's a nightmare. And so basically, when our first one was on the way, let's just say it was a bit of an emergency, or so we needed to get down there pretty quickly. And when I arrived, the parking system had failed, so there was a big queue of cars trying to get in, a big queue of cars trying to get out, and neither could get through. That it was like blocked completely. But, I waited in a queue for a while, and eventually we managed to nudge our way forward. And I was in this long queue of cars waiting to park in the car park, but all the spaces were taken. So I don't know what happened, but my wife wasn't making obviously a lot of noise and like that. I wasn't trying to get anybody's attention. I was just trying to get to space, but I was in a bit of a panic myself. But this one older lady, I think she must have been in her early 70s, late 60s. Walked specifically to just my car. And my car was in a queue of cars, so normally you go to the front one and say, like, hey, do you want a space? She went specifically to my car, and I rolled down the window and said, are you okay? I thought she needed help. And she said to me, I said, do you need a space? And I said, yeah, my wife's in labour at the moment, so we need to get moving. Oh, okay. Then she said, follow me. And she deliberately made sure that no other car moved and followed, made sure that we followed behind her, basically. Took us directly to her space. And as I managed to pull in, I got out just to say thank you. And I just see her briefly for a moment. And I sort of waved to her, said, oh, thank you so much. We really needed that help. And helped my wife to get out the car. And then she'd gone. The weird thing is, for her to leave that car park, she must have been in a car. So for her to leave the car park in her car, she had to be able to leave, but the exit was still blocked, not working. So where did she go? Was she just a randomer that just walked into the car park thinking, I know, I'm going to be useful today and help these guys out? And although it did make me laugh that my uncle, who lives nearby, cycles through the car park of the hospital. He actually knocked on my window to say hello. He didn't realise my wife was in labour, so he knocked on the window to say hello to me and cycled off before I could even react. So he had no clue that he came by during our moment of need, which is I've been laughing about for years. But if it wasn't for that lady, I think the situation could have got worse. It could have got more dangerous. I just don't know. But again, who was that? Either way, thank you. So we're able to get her there on time, and luckily the baby arrived eventually safely-ish.
Thank goodness. Yeah, because your child could have been born in the car. But
Yes.
no, we hear these type of stories all the time. And why not believe that it was angelic intervention? Why not? Right? There's a story of I think it was Sonia Choquette told this, but I may be misremembering that. But I heard the story that there's this woman on a plane. She was, I think, flying to a funeral and just feeling very despondent. And this elderly woman was helped up the aisle and sat next to her and started talking to her and just gave her so much comfort and was quoting scripture and just talking her through and helping her, much like these ladies on the train with you, just helping her feel better. So when the plane came down, she was helped off of the plane as well. You know, they take the people who need help off first. And the woman telling the story realized that she had left her Bible on the seat. And she went running out to say, oh, this woman had left her Bible, but nobody knew who that was. She didn't see her anywhere. So she thought, well, maybe there's a name in the Bible. So she opened up the Bible and it said Dolores Good. And she asked if there was a Dolores Good on the manifest. No, nobody was flying that day with that name. And she thought, well, I wonder if this is a sign, like the Lord is good, Dolores Good. And she took it to be a sign that this might have been an angel just to help her to feel better at a time when she needed it.
Oh, that's really sweet. That's really nice. It's actually quite inventive, if anything, as well. So the way the name kind of conveys a particular message within the name.
Yeah.
So I suppose that's where I'd ask is, how do people know what's an angelic experience and what could just be a coincidence? So, because I know the previous episode, I think one of our guests used the word, what's the word, pareidolia. Pareidolia is it's a really interesting sounding word, though. But basically, the human brain is designed to fill in missing data, essentially. So sometimes when we look at clouds, for example, like we say, there's a face there that looks like a dog, that looks like a spider, well, that looks like a cloud, for those uninventive. But for those also like who see sequencing events, sometimes can automatically fill in unknown information with an explanation. I know that does happen sometimes. I mean, I know I think I know what an angelic experience is myself anyway, because I don't know if you can relate though, but it's something I kind of feel in my gut when I know something otherworldly is happening. It's a certain feeling like in the gut somewhere in the solar plexus. But for anyone who doesn't quite know themselves, how do they differentiate between coincidence and angelism? Is that a word? Angelicism? Yeah.
Angelism, I like that.
I'm inventing words here.
I get this question all the time, and I actually teach people to channel and connect with their guides. And I have what I call a rule of 3. If it happens once, it's a fluke, although there's really no flukes. Happens twice, it's a coincidence, although there's really no coincidences. It happens 3 times, better act on it. So, again, we can look at things as either nothing is a miracle or everything is a miracle. So we can look at some of these things as, well, either it's angelic intervention or it's just a fluke. But there's also something I like to teach, that if it's positive, if it's helpful, if it's timely, if it's uplifting, why not consider it some sort of angelic communication? Why not?
Yeah, I think that's such a simple way of putting it, really, because I have this thing, it's still in my head. It's still the remnants of the life that I've been brought up with, to doubt these things, to not see it so much as evil now, though, but it's just more, but it could be this, or you're probably just imagining it, or you want these things to happen, but I don't know, like things just happen and I can't explain it. It's even like my grandmother passed away 2 years ago, bless her. And she was just amazing. She was just, as we say in the UK, a legend. She's such a lovely, kind. And she used to walk to Oxford every day, clearing up all the rubbish or litter. She put it in her bag. She just used to look after the city, be walking into her 70s. Amazing, really. Yeah, me and my sister, we knew that she was very unwell. She was in hospital and just not doing so great. And she was holding on for quite some time. And I think the same night, roughly about between 2 and 3 in the morning, both me and my sister, who live in different houses, experienced something. I was actually woken up in the middle of the night by an explosion, and it felt like smashing glass, like metal had been thrown everywhere. Like I shot out of bed, and my partner didn't hear it at all. Only I heard it. That was the weirdest thing, 'cause my partner will wake at any noise. And to the left of me is like this glass chamber where I keep crystals and bits and pieces in. I thought that had dropped, and I checked it. Nothing had been thrown across the room. But as I woke, I could smell my grandmother's particular smell of the perfume she used to wear. And my sister, at the same time, she had a dream about her grandmother saying, I'm ready to go now. And she had a dream about her combing my sister's hair, because my sister used to comb her hair as she was dying, because she used to look after her appearance and everything. So with that, she had this dream and then woke up, and then she could still feel someone's hands going through her hair, and almost like somebody was combing her hair, and a hand running down her arm. And she was actually stood there, like, feeling it going down her arm. And she knew that was her. So we called each other the next morning after we went eventually back to sleep. We both said to each other on the phone, she's gone now, isn't she? And then we received the call about an hour later to say that she'd passed away at that time during the night. And so that, to me, like, I like to think that maybe she became an angel in some way or form. She says, okay, I'm transcending now. I'm going to give you a little bit of a nudge, just saying that I'm heading off now, but it's okay. I'm still around, in her own way. So yeah, bless her.
Well, there are so many stories out there like that of we receive a dream, or we sit up bolt upright in the middle of sleep, or maybe the phone rings and we just know that that's our loved one just saying, I'm gone now. And there's a story of a podcaster of the Box of Oddities, Jethro. He's one of the hosts. He's so funny, but he was talking about when his mom died. Oh, I'll probably butcher this story, but she died at home. They were expecting it. And after she passed, they had called the ambulance to come and take her to the funeral home. But it was like 3:00 in the morning, and they didn't know what else to do while they were waiting. And so they started tidying things up. And the phone rang, and they went, this is when we had landline phones. And so they went and picked up the phone, and nobody was there. So they thought, okay, that's weird. The fluke, right? They start tidying up again. The phone rings again. They pick it up again. Nobody's there. It's like, well, that's rude. The coincidence, right? So they're tidying up. The phone rings again, and nobody's there. But by this time, they found a note that the mom had written, and it had been on the desk, and it fell behind the desk. And it said, I've left now. I'll call you when I get there. And this was written by the mom. She had taken a trip a few years before, and she missed saying goodbye to the people that were in the house. And she left a note to say, I'll call you when I get there. But they knew that when the phone rang, that was mom just calling to say, hey, I made it. I got there. Isn't that funny?
That's so sweet.
Yeah,
I love
there's
that.
a story in my book, Real Life Angel Encounters. This was my aunt actually who told this story. And my grandmother had passed. My aunt is living in Geneva, Switzerland, so she's not anywhere near the home base. Anyway, she'd come from Geneva. She'd flown, a couple of days. It was really awful and rough. And so she's at my mom's house, and she'd gotten there to start making preparations for the funeral. So it was maybe 4:00 in the morning, and she couldn't sleep because she was really jet lagged. And she went out to my mom's courtyard behind her apartment. And my grandmother appeared to her. She just came up right in front of her and said, I want you to know that I made it. I'm okay. And you can tell everybody that I'm all right. And we hear stories of that all the time. My aunt said she was the happiest person at the funeral because she knew that mom was okay.
That's amazing. Like, I'm into science, but believe it or not, despite being a spiritual person, I'm very much into science. And I would love to explain it through science, as in science being the human representation of our understanding. But I see all of this. I mean, I don't know if you noticed it in our podcast theme tune. I don't know if you've heard it yet. Anyway, it just simply says the paranormal is just future normal. So essentially there'll be a point in the future where I believe that we might be able to explain and celebrate these wonderful experiences rather than invalidating them because they don't fit within our field of understanding, at least current understanding. Because there was one point where, was it Galileo Galilei was laughed out of court for saying, okay, well, the entirety of our solar system doesn't revolve around our Earth. Our Earth rotates around the sun, and so on. He was almost treated as if he was committing treason. But now, obviously, we evolve. So I see all this spiritual, wonderful experiences being part of a greater beyond, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful thing. I feel like I've got to ask you the standard question is, we obviously have talked about your book. So where can people get your book, basically, if they would like to read it? I think that's quite the important question.
Well, hopefully your local bookshop has a copy. If not, ask them to carry it. And failing that, then we can find it on Amazon. We can find it on Barnes & Noble or Goodreads. My favorite, which is bookshop.org. You can find it anywhere online. Just look for Christi Clemons Hoffman, Real Life Angel Encounters. Real people share real stories of miraculous encounters.
Wow. I'm amazed you said that all so fluently, so perfectly as well. So I'd love to get you a level of confidence one day at speaking. I think you're fantastic. But also I could tell it because you speak about something you really, truly care about. It just flows naturally. It's just part of who you are. I think that's wonderful. And I'll add some links to your podcast down in the notes and your book and everything. So I suppose as a final kind of wrap-up message, really, I'd love to ask you, Christi, is there a message you would like to leave with us for our audience? Is there something kind of you'd like to share and impart? Whether it be a positive bit of advice or just a happy message?
Yes, absolutely. Again, I go back to my just world domination to let everybody know that you're not alone. You're never alone. And you're much more than you think you are. Beautiful.
That is great. I came to the realization recently where it's learning to accept who you are and what you are. The best way I can describe it I've discussed this with my co-host Christine on a few occasions, ultimately describing the body. Essentially, it's like we're driving a car. And a lot of people tend to think, okay, well, I drive a Ford. When you leave that Ford, you're not still called a Ford, are you? You're called, you could be called Christi, or you could be called Steve, or whatever it might be. The way I see it is acceptance of who you are is essentially you're inhabiting something temporarily. I think that's just part of like it's just almost a beautiful way to explain something in a very mundane kind of way though, but that's the way I see it. It's like, look after your body, love your body though, but understand who you truly are, and that power is within you, but it stays with you wherever you go, whether you're in this body or another body. Hopefully I'll get a better body in the next round anyway, or maybe I'll come back as a chinchilla or something, but
that's fine.
Yeah. But it's been a pleasure having you, Christi, and I think you have such a lovely, wonderful energy. And I'm going to listen to more of your podcasts as well in the coming weeks. I have a lot of work to do, so I love to listen to podcasts on the go. And it's just wonderful that you're just one of many people out there sharing another wonderful, happy message, really, about the fact that we are so much more than what is presented initially. And as you say, like, we have the power. Absolutely. As it's also quoted by He-Man as well. If you ever watched He-Man back in the days of the 80s, I have the power. It's a great film. But I've had a wonderful time speaking to you, and you have a wonderful rest of your day, and everybody else who's watching, have a lovely evening, morning, afternoon, whatever time of the day it is for you. Just have a wonderful day and just be yourself.
Thank you so much for having me, Stan. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Pleasure, ditto, absolutely.
Choice, sharing dreams and blowing off steam. We'll lend you a hand, we'll let you stand, sharing stories about the unknown. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium, learning from each other, breaking barriers, a message of hope, birthed from the unknown. Who you gonna call? I'm not a ghostbuster, no proton packs, just crossing streams of knowledge. It's not so scary when things get hairy. It's not the paranormal, just future normal. Breaking barriers, no longer the carrier We're releasing the fear and replacing it with knowledge. Understanding each other, we uncover a whole new point of view within you. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium. Learning from each other, breaking barriers. A message of hope, birthed from the unknown. The only stream we need to cross is the platforms to get the message across. Knowing each other, sister to brother. No ghost or spirit or demon will ever get the better of this medium. Paranormal perspectives, we're here to inspect it. I'm a small, not a medium. Let us escape from this tedium. Learning from each other, breaking barriers. A message of hope, birthed from the unknown.